Hey guys, Udub Ultra here. Welcome back to the channel. Bringing you a new settings walkthrough here now for the 2024 LG 45-inch ultra-wide OLED. Now again, I do this as a series of videos just so you have an understanding when you're watching any of my POV gameplay videos what settings I'm using. Now this is video number 1 for the 2024 model. I've done quite a bit of playing around with the settings so far, and so I've definitely landed on some settings that, again, I really enjoy. So I'm not sure how much I'll change, but of course, as I do make changes, I will create a new settings walkthrough video and then tie that to the POV videos that use it. So with that, let's just go ahead and jump in first. I want to cover the desktop settings I have. All right, so first, when talking about HDR, especially in the desktop settings, I always leave this on. Again, I very rarely ever turn this off. It's just for convenience, it's easier, and particularly with this monitor, right, because of the increased brightness, it looks perfectly, actually, I would say it looks fantastic, even in desktop use. So I do use, or again, you leave that on, and then even from a, when you go into the HDR settings, right, one thing that helps, obviously, turn SDR content brightness almost all the way up, right, just to get that bright picture. And then right now I have auto HDR set to off just because I am using RTX HDR in most cases. So with that, the only other thing I've adjusted when it comes to desktop settings here in the NVIDIA control panel is the only thing I've changed is just because I do like a little bit extra color is a digital vibrance is turned from 50 to 55%. So very, very slight tweak, very slight increase. But again, I just want a little bit of that extra color pop. All right, now bringing it back to desktop here, I'm going to go ahead and go through the monitor settings. I'll do both again because with these monitors, the settings panel changes a little bit between SDR and HDR mode. Now, again, HDR is what I mostly use here. So for HDR use, first off, game mode I have set to Gamer 1. Now, what I've noticed is this is the only mode that actually shows, if I go through them, it actually shows that you can see here in the bottom, the VESA certified display HDR. This monitor is rated for HDR, display HDR 400 True Black. So I'm assuming that's relevant, right? Perhaps that this is specifically the mode to use if you want to, basically get that picture. So I just left it here. I think, again, it's very bright. Trust me, it looks fantastic, especially with some of these other settings. Now, VRR is set to on. Black stabilizer I have adjusted to 55. Now going over to picture adjust, right, brightness set to 100, and then peak brightness. This is really the main setting that increases the brightness and capabilities of this monitor over the 2023 model. Peak brightness here you can set to high, low, or off. Now high I think is clearly what's meant to be used when you're playing HDR content, and again it's what really brings out again the highlights and trust me, it doesn't muddy any of the detail. Doesn't muddy any of the detail at all. So peak brightness when using HDR is set to high. Now sharpness set to 60, and then color temp, which I'm actually really happy to see here. You actually can adjust color temperature here on the monitor in HDR mode. Now you couldn't do this in the 23 model. I'm really glad that you can here. So again, I have this set to medium. And then of course sound, I do have it set to internal speaker. On my desktop settings, I have it going to my headset, but again, this just makes it easier. Depth sound, turn to on. So if I unplug my headset, right, it immediately starts playing through the speakers. I think depth sound is kind of they're trying to be their surround sound or 3D audio through the speakers. It sounds fine, right? I mean, I just leave these basically as default. And then of course, right, I'm using HDMI, so plugged in HDMI 2, aspect ratio set to original. And then keep going down here. You do have direct access with this monitor to a lot of the OLED screensaver settings. So like screen move, screensaver, image cleaning, you can turn on directly. Hexagon lighting I have turned off. Now, this is the other big thing with this monitor, very similar to the 23 model. So I have this set an input compatibility version to 2.1 AV. The reason for this is it looks like, just like with the 23 model, 2.1 PC leaves or forces display stream compression to basically just be always on. So it means you can't access DLDSR or DSR. So if you are a user who wants to use those settings and basically increase the resolution, you have to do what you basically had to do with the 23 model, which is set this to 2.1 AV and then use custom resolution utility to delete the 4K and TV resolutions and then create a custom 3440 by 1440 240 hertz resolution. If you do that, it does give you access immediately to DSR. Works perfectly fine. Again, looks excellent. So Just want to note that this does have the same issue as the 23 model for anyone who is familiar and wants to use DLDSR. Now, while I have adjusted my screen personally to do that, I'll be honest, I very rarely use DLDSR. I'm perfectly fine with native resolution, especially because of the extra frames I get. So just want to note that, though, for any users, if you're curious, particularly compared to the previous year. Now, come in here real quick. I'm going to go ahead and turn HDR off real quick. All right, now I've just turned HDR off here just to go through my settings, and so you can see how they look in SDR mode. Now, of course, game mode is still set to Gamer 1. Black stabilizer in this case does adjust down to 20 here. And then the other thing here we're noting is peak brightness when SDR mode is set to off. Now, this is because this is the, when I'm basically doing work, I'm in that particular case, I'm not using HDR. That's really the only use case where I'm not. I've just set peak brightness to off. I just don't need the extra brightness, but so you can obviously turn it up to high or low. Contrast set to 72, sharpness 60, gamma, just like with the 23 model, you get access to this setting and adjust, which I have set to mode 1. And then here in SDR mode, you also have the ability to adjust the 6 color saturation and hue, as well as black level. Now, my 6 color is just all at default 50, and then black level here set to high. And let me go turn HDR on. All right, so I just turned HDR back on here. But yeah, like I said, this is how I normally, especially with my gaming computer here, I always leave it on in this setting. But yeah, again, if you're curious about a direct comparison, I do have that video. I think I mentioned that here on the intro. But overall, right, this monitor has been fantastic to use so far. I've really been enjoying particularly the increased brightness when you do get when you start playing games in HDR, like it really does pop with those highlights. Again, certainly much more than default settings of the 23 model, right? You can definitely get it closer, the 23 model, if you use a service remote to adjust some of the brightness settings on the back end. But even still, this 24 model still has an improvement over the 23 model, even with using a service remote. Now, with that, like I said, I'm really enjoying it. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions at all. Of course, I will be providing settings update videos like this should I adjust anything. But otherwise, this is what will be linked to any of my POV videos that use it. Yeah, like I said, I really do appreciate you guys for your support. Please don't forget that like button and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later.